4,000 years ago, ancient Britons were building Stonehenge. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Nebtawire Menutep IV died, ending the 11th dynasty and starting the 12th. And in China, in the modern-day province of Qinghai, someone is making something novel. Noodles. Possibly even the world's first. They would not end up eating these noodles, either because they met their demise in a horrible natural disaster, or because they dropped the bowl. We don't know exactly what happened. They found a bowl like this, so you be the judge. Whatever happened, it allowed archaeologists, almost 4,000 years later, to excavate and analyze the contents, and for us to recreate them, thus forming the first step in our journey in which we recreate historical noodle dishes to retrace the steps from the first Chinese noodles to a modern bowl of ramen. The road to ramen. In 2002, digging was ongoing at the Lazia excavation site. At one point, archaeologists uncovered a room with loads of pots and pans. Initially, these did not prove very interesting. Until they unearthed one vessel which appeared to contain noodles. To this date, these were the earliest noodles ever found. This was an especially exciting find because the civilization, which resided at this site, did not leave behind any written records. So archaeological finds like this are all we have to go on. The fact that they even had noodles shows quite an advanced degree of technological development. And this was in a normal homestead, not the court of a king. So this is why we think these noodles are a great starting point for our road to ramen. To make this first noodle, we are going to need the grain it was made with. Millet. No, not quite yet. The scientists who recreated these noodles wrote down their findings in an article, which we will use as a guide. This article tells us that we should start with whole millet. I'm excited, aren't you? Oh, come on, cheer up. When has this ever gone wrong? Anyway, this here is foxtail millet, which, to be fair, is very hard to find these days in a non-hulled form. The only way we were able to find this was through specialist bird food sellers. You can buy these for human consumption as well, but they will be hulled, and according to the scientists who recreated this process, we want the non-hulled ones. After plucking them, we are going to need the mortar and pestle for this one. Give them a good grinding, but don't turn them into dust. We're looking to release the husks. We want a gentle pounding, a smooth grind. Once most of the husks are loose, we're going to have to remove about 70% of the husks. No, there are easier methods for this. This is one of the oldest tricks in the book. Winnowing, which is the practice of using wind to separate the chaff from the millet. Find yourself a nice windy area. You can do this with a fan indoors, but it will be a pain to clean up. Trust us, we tried. So go somewhere where your biodegradable refuse will make local wildlife happy. Pour the contents from one bowl into another. If all goes well and there's enough wind, the chaff will be swept away by the wind while your heavier millet just falls down. If there's not enough wind, you'll need someone to help you make some wind. If you don't have any friends, throw them up and blow. Might want to close your eyes or wear goggles. Do be careful not to blow too hard, you might end up losing all your millet. Yes, we were surprised too, how a technique that has been in use for literally over 10,000 of years still works. Now, you might think we are going to ground this into flour, but we're not going to do this. Instead, we're just going to soak these overnight in some water. We'll pick this up in the morning. The next day, the water should have gotten a bit gloopy. Drain the millet and give them a good mashing so they begin to form a dough-like substance. We did this in small batches because it's easier to handle. After everything's been mashed up, let it rest for 1 hour. Then start pounding it again for about 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't really know what to say. It's what it says here on the instructions. Now, just between us, the scientists who did this tried to achieve a noodle that was over 2 meters long. So you can probably get away with doing this for 20 minutes or so. Still a painful amount, but more reasonable. We made the human do it for the real 2 hours though. I think that's enough pounding. We are now going to steam our well-pounded ball for about 10 minutes. These noodles were not cut or pulled, but pressed in a hurler press, which usually looks like this. Ours isn't as rustic though. The dough needs to be warm and a little bit wet to be pressed easily, hence why we are steaming it. After 8 or so minutes, take it off the steamer and pound it a bit more. No need to go for hours on end this time, just 1 or 2 minutes to spread the warmth around through the dough. Put it back in the steamer for a quick minute or two to warm up and extrude them directly into the boiling water. At least that's how it's supposed to go. We hit a bit of an obstacle. All of our noodles disintegrated the moment they hit the boiling water, and we never got to the smooth texture shown in the Lazia article. We tried the normal millet for human consumption, which just completely dried out in steaming, and many other methods and techniques. Going back to the original article, we noticed that there are different types of foxtail millet, something we were unaware of. The article mentions glutinous and non-glutinous foxtail millet, but we have no idea how to tell one from the other. All we know is that the length shown in the article was never obtained by us, regardless of which technique we tried. Our best result came with this bird feed millet, which was grown in China, but even this was not close to the intended result. So we have to admit defeat on this one. When not boiling the noodles, we can press some nice looking ones, which would at least give you an indication of how they should have looked. Not ideal for dinner, but it's a fun little experiment. A lovely living museum piece. Don't worry, we are still making noodles. We will need to fast forward a bit to the Han Dynasty, which reigned from circa 202 BC to 220 AD. At this point, wheat and more advanced milling technology had made its way from the west to China via the Silk Route. Around 200 AD, a dictionary named the Ming mentions Bing. This was described as food made of flour and water. Now, that's a bit vague, and the writer of the Ming apparently agrees, because they go on to list a bunch of examples, including Hubing, Zhengbing, Tangbing, Jiabing, Suabing, Microsoft Bing, Jinbing, Swabing, and Matthew Perry. All of these are different applications of dough, ranging from deep frying to mixing with marrow. The one we're interested in is the Tangbing, which freely translates as broth dough. And we can all see how this is our next step in our road to ramen. We're not quite there yet. There were ample varieties of dough in broth, and most of them are still eaten to this day. Some are fried flat discs from which bits are torn, while others are mildly leavened breads, which act as a sort of crouton. We are going for a method contained in the Jimin Yao Shu from around 533 AD and make Yin, whatever that meant, as this is the Tangbing variant closest to ramen we could find. First, we're going to make a ball of dough. There are obviously no sources giving us exact measurements, so we are going to base this on previous pasta and noodle making experience. 300 grams of plain flour, 120 milliliters of water, and a pinch of salt. Mix all of these gently, stirring as you add the room temperature water bit by bit. Once everything is incorporated, knead until smooth. We're going to roll this in a sausage, and it will become clear why later. While this rests, we're going to make our broth. Archaeologists have actually found soup, which is still liquid. More specifically in Xi'an, home of the Terracotta Army. Here they found a sealed bronze vessel, which contained a soup made from the bones of a young dog. Oh dear. I know this is hard, but we need to do this. For the sake of historical integrity. Actually, there might be a better way. We don't have any archaeological finds for this, but it was during the Han Dynasty that Buddhism was introduced to China and vegetarian diets did gain popularity. So we have developed our own recipe based on ingredients available at the time. Quick aside, for the next episode we will be making a recipe based on a source from the Song Dynasty. So make sure you subscribe for that one. Back to the Han Dynasty. Take a large pot and coat the bottom with a bit of oil. Add in slices of garlic and fermented bean curd. Give them a gentle frying. Once they are fragrant, cover this with about 4 liters of water. Then add in some shiitake, wood ear mushroom and ginger. Feel free to add any aromatics you like. We opted for fennel, spring onion and our secret ingredient, roasted Chinese leaf, also known as Napa cabbage. Bring all of this to a boil and then reduce it to a simmer. At this stage, add some Szechuan peppercorns, which were believed to bring good fortune. Hasn't worked for us yet though. Let this go for about 2 hours, after which we will strain and chill the broth. This is a vegetable broth, so it can stay good for quite some time. As per the sauce, we should rip the dough into strands roughly the thickness of a chopstick. The sauce does not specify how thick the chopsticks should be, so you can make it easy on yourself and get a chunky chopstick. Every strand should be about 30 centimeters long. Then soak these in cold water. At the same time, heat up a separate pot of water to boil the noodles in later. Yes, this is rather odd, but it's what it says in the text. Once your water is boiling, take your noodles out of the cold water. Not yet. Flatten them first. We're looking for the thickness of a leek leaf. You can flatten them between your fingers or on a work surface. The text does not specify a method. We found our work surface to be easier. Then throw them into boiling water as they are shaped. It will take around a minute for these to be ready, so use this time to get out a bowl. Fish your noodles out of the boiling water and place them in your bowl. Then ladle over some of your warm broth. You can add tofu for protein and spring onions for garnish, like we did here. This is entirely optional. Now it's time to tuck into ramen's great granddaddy. It's a weird sensation. The noodles are chunky, but because they've been soaked, they're very smooth. They pair nicely with the broth. On top of that, they are budget friendly and vegetarian. We hope you enjoyed this first step on the road to ramen. The next episode should be up soon, so make sure you are subscribed to get notified of this. In the meantime, please leave us a like or even better, a comment. This may sound trivial, but it really helps us out. Thank you very much for watching.